So I have got like 3 themes that I would like us to just explore. And yeah, like Bruce Copley always says, if we'll get to what we need to get in the session, and what we don't get to is fine. So the first part is sometimes planners ask, where do I use the money EQ in the process? Um, what is the benefit of using money EQ in the process, as well as then what is the benefit for me as well as for my client? So I want to just share a thought or two on that, and then dive into the relationship builder. And if I may, I'm glad Marguerite joined us, because if I remember correctly in my mind, Marguerite is a relationship builder. So we've got somebody that is then fitting in that profile, not to put you in a box, Marguerite, but thing is, it's from the previous sessions. It's interesting. Each time the universe just gave us one of those profiles every time, so which makes it just so much deeper. And then lastly, there's a part of the report which I'm pondering in my own mind around the language of that part of the report, as well as then the other part is, I'm curious to hear how you as users also use it, and I've got a few ideas around that. So that's more or less the 3 themes in my mind. And but Sierra, welcome. Dirk, welcome. And then Annelie, also first time as part of the community. So great to have you all here. So I'm just going to do a screen share here for us. So the first part of, where does money EQ most probably fit into the financial advice planning / coaching space? Then I would like us to play a little bit of a game this morning for you to help create the story for me. And in improv, they say you never say but you say and. So what I want you to do this morning is, if you can put all your mics on, is I'll with each slide transition, I will go yes, and all of you will go and. So we'll build a story together. So when we end up in front of a client, irrespective if it's a new client we're onboarding, or it's a client that we've previously worked, they've got their own structure of interpretation. So we also talk of way of being. So, and that structuring of interpretation is, we can broadly say, is made up about the mood and the emotion that a client brings to the meeting and brings with themselves, that sits in their DNA. The second part is the language that they bring with us. In that language, there's some assumptions that they've got, there's some biases that they've got, their value sets in that language that they'll use, and that makes them unique, that they come to us. And then they embody that in a specific and unique way. And that structure of interpretation, in my mind, is Stephen Covey years ago gave it, or made it so easy for us to understand, is to say that structure of interpretation will determine how a client will see the world. That will determine how they will engage or do, so how they'll manage their money and engage with their money. And that's ultimately the end result they're going to get, is informed by the structure of interpretation. So yes,
and
there we go. Thanks. And for us as financial coaches and financial planners, it's we interested in specific part of that structure of interpretation. And then in our world, and for this call, it's then, sitting to a large extent within that part of the financial personality or money EQ. And if we look what money EQ gives us, it gives us the communication style and the client's planning preferences. It gives us how they will manage their money, their competencies. It will also give us a view of how a client thinks of investments and what is their investment biases. Yes.
And
then the first part of the financial personality EQ then is the natural behavior. So what we get from that report is how a client has been born, their DNA. However, the other part as financial coaches that we are interested in financial planners is the learned behavior. So what is the things that happened in the client's life? What is the stories that come with it? And that's also part of the narrative we can then explore by using money EQ. Yes.
And
so all our clients that end up in front of us is already somewhere. So they've got a current reality. So they've got the structure of interpretation with their own stories, but also we can see it in the numbers that's in front of us. So that's the package that we see. Yes.
and
So most probably the reason why we would love to engage with them and we would love to hear their stories is they're on a journey of becoming somebody more than what they are now. So, and in my mind is if we can help them living the best life now as well as in the future. So managing that paradox by having not postponing everything that they want to do for one day, but having a good life now, as well as ensuring a good life in the future, we help them to become, hopefully, somebody better than what they are now. And in the process, we also becoming somebody better than what we are in the moment. Yes.
And
So what we would like is to understand is how we need to communicate, engage with our clients. So we're in constant communication with our clients, and you'll see there's immediately a link back to communication and planning preferences that we can get from the money EQ. Secondly, we will do the planning for our clients based on what we hear in the communication we're having. We'll give advice around that. We'll propose solutions, and that gives us the function that we would normally engage with, which is the planner part. Yes.
and
The challenge we sit is, however, if we just work with the communication, engage with our client, with the planning, the advice, and the solutions, and the numbers, there's a behavior risk in my mind. Yes.
and
We need to understand what is our client's attitude. So what is the influence of their structure interpretation? Have they got a attitude of abundance, or do they have an attitude of scarcity? How do they see the world? How do they see their families? And that leads to a second part, which is we need to clarify and align dreams with values and resources. And that's again, if we look at both of those, we can see that in the money EQ. The money personality gives us that information to, and I always say that's an assessment that we give back that tells us a story, but it gives us the opportunity to engage with the client to unpack that further and better understand the client's story. The second part there is managing the flow. So money just flow through our lives, and it depends on how we are going to use it. What of that? How are we going to save it? How are we going to spend it? Again, that comes to the second component, which is managing the money competencies which we can get from the money EQ. Then there's an important part, and that's the life transitions. And interesting research that has been done over and over shows us that one of the biggest concerns actually that our clients have is life transitions. You'll see I made that a dual color because there's a part there that we can mitigate through solutions and through financial planning, which is the numbers part. But there in my mind is a big part that comes to the money personality. And I'll just share a quick story. The other day I did a life transition reflection with somebody that's in the industry, a planner. And our life transition questionnaire says, what is the probability that something will happen? High, medium, low. And on the one of my partner can pass away, the advisor said, but I can't ask this for a client. And my question was, but don't you sell life insurance, do financial planning? Yes, but now I don't understand. So the emotional effect for her of thinking of her partner passing away was so big that she when she looked at it on paper, she could not deal with it, and she felt so uncomfortable with it. So life transitions is something that we need to plan proactively with our clients, which is a conversation of how do you plan for that? How do you help your client then through that life transition? And how do we create a new life after the life transition, irrespective if it's my child going to university and starting a new life, or something like passing away or get disabled or lose my job or start moonlighting, is how do I do that? And we can see some of that also in terms of the money EQ, where we can see what is our client's propensity to change or not. So do we need to do more work on that? Investment behaviors, how will our clients behave in terms of investments? And then the relationships, in my mind, fits into this picture, because with a client is not in isolation. They engage either within business practices, in their workplace, relationships, husbands and wives with different money personalities. And all of that influences how we engage with our money. So yes.
And
I think there's one part on the planner side, which most probably also comes from a behavioral side, is keeping our clients accountable. Some from their personalities will be much easier to stay with a budget, think into the future in terms of goal planning, etc. However, it's our responsibility. The client needs to take the accountability, but I think that's part of our value proposition, to walk alongside our clients, be their cheerleaders, but also keep them accountable. And that's the coaching part for me. So how do I then...
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. So, yes.
And
The question most probably is then, how do I use money EQ? I think personally, you can start using it to create awareness for yourself. What is your money personality? And how does that influence? What is your biases when you engage with your clients? And just create awareness with your client initially, if you're just comfortable with that. Or you can say, let's build deeper relationships, which then sits there in the planning side. I ask deeper questions. I've got better communication with my client. And then lastly, ultimately, I think one can use this money EQ to really support your client in terms of changing their structure interpretation, making them aware of their struggles and what is the things that stop them from becoming financially independent. What is helping them to becoming more with less pain, living life now as well as in the future through coaching. So I think the tool can be used in different ways, which should suit you as a financial planner. And it's not necessary, that you need to be using it in terms of the deep coaching as in the middle column, which I highlighted as the behavioral risk. But I think that's ultimately, in my mind, if we really want to add value. And I think the other lens when I was thinking about this is also to map one's own practice, to say where are your practice in this journey as as such. So, are you just playing in the planner part? Are you starting to build deeper relationships? Are you including some of these coaching conversations as part of the conversation? So at that point, I've said enough. A few thoughts from you on the call in terms of this picture. Before we delve into the relationship builder.
From my side, Indrik, it's Hanlie. I think I've got a better understanding now. Remember, I'm quite new to the concept, and I've received my money EQ report last week from you. So this helps me to understand my own report better. And I have this question in my mind: how to practically use this with clients or with interactions even with colleagues, not necessarily always with clients, because I'm not in the face of clients on a daily basis. But thank you. I definitely have a better awareness of what's happening in my own environment and how to take it out to understand and guide and support somebody else as well.
Thanks, Annelie.
I think, Hendrik, for me, it was quite overwhelming at the beginning because there's so much information and almost just picking one piece to say, okay, as long as the client gets one valuable reflection or one valuable piece that they either confirm or didn't know, that was a good conversation. So I've just tried to simplify it a little bit. And even that slide of yours, there's a lot going on.
Yeah. Dirk, a view there from you as a seasoned, converted life planner.
Asking Dirk because I interrupted it. And there he is.
Sorry, guys, they're mowing the lawn here, so it's quite noisy. Hendrik, I've looked at this for quite a long while. I just saw the call and I was interested just to sit in. I did this quite a while ago with Robin. So yeah, I mean, there are a lot of these things about, but this one obviously looks quite interesting. But yes, I can't comment too much right now. Sorry.
No, that's 100%. Thanks, Dirk, for that.
Hendrik, I think I've mentioned to you before that we've started to incorporate the assessment, not so much from so we're dealing with advisors and technology and change. And it's interesting to me how when you're talking about when to start using it, and I think it takes me back to Mary Foury's comment the last time we met in your coaching circle, is that sometimes, well, she mentioned you will know when the client is ready to start having these conversations. And it could be that you as a financial advisor are ready to proactively go out and find clients that are ready, or that flow will come to you and you will notice when they're ready. And they'll do the assessment potentially for a particular reason. There's a particular life transition that they're going through that they're asking your advice on. And then it's a nice opportunity to introduce this idea to them of doing this assessment. So just for example, on our side, we're embarking on a big project for a large institution, and we want to drive proactively the change process. So we are using the assessment to identify which of our users are going to resist change versus those who are going to proactively engage with it. And that opens, as Louis says, then the conversations begin. And I think if there's anything I've learned in the last 6 months with you guys, this is not a once-off exercise at all. The assessment is a once-off exercise, but the process is a journey, and it's a long-term journey. And throughout that journey, you've got those insights that you can draw on at any point to guide your particular conversation.
Thanks, Robert. I think, Margarita, I saw your microphone off. Did you want to also add a thought?
I just had an idea specifically around the word accountability. I recently read something along the lines of it's not the process of holding somebody accountable is not standing on the outside and directing that person, but journeying alongside that person and bearing witness to what you see unfolding in their lives as they hold themselves accountable.
Mm.
And I just thought it was such a beautiful way of looking at it, and a lot less potentially threatening way to explain it to others.
Yeah, I love it. Thanks for sharing that, Marguerite. Yeah. And I think that's also, I love it because it's not judgmental. You know, it's, I'm there for you. You know, it's like the Sherpa taking you up the mountain. You know, so I've been there. I understand, and yeah. So yeah, beautiful. So if we stand still for a moment, thanks for everybody sharing their few thoughts. The relationship builder, then, if we look at the top 5 traits or factors that influence the profiles, is more collaborative. In terms of reserved and outgoing, a little or more or less in the middle, more patient, not that fast-paced, and then spontaneous and planned, very much can play in both of those realms. And then overall, most trusting, but don't mess with my trust as such. So just a recap, perhaps, just from the previous 2 sessions that we had. Our initiators and strategists, then a high level, what is important for them from a financial planning perspective and from a life perspective is they are more risk-taking. They love to set strategic goals, is growth focused to the point, and needs high impact. How do we get there? Give me the plans and let's do it. I want to be in control. Where our influencers, engagers, and community builders, because influencers, although they're very fast-paced and results focused, they're leaning a little bit more over to relationship orientated. So they'll have a little bit of initiator and strategist in them, but will lean more over is they tending to be more focused on lifestyle is important for them. They'll also be the spenders in our portfolio. They'll require a balanced lifestyle, and they love public recognition, so never embarrass them. Then where we are then today, relationship builders, facilitators, and adapters. And I'm an adapter, ons is regte draadsitter, so we can play it all ways depending on the situation. However, then looking at the relationship builders and facilitators, more cautious, requires security. Family is important for them. Stability is important for them. They actually prefer life to have guarantees and stability. My own daughter is also one, and then they'll like to rather stay with things that they understand and make tactical decisions in terms of how they think about financial planning as such. If we then go a little bit further in terms of relationship builders, or just looking what is then in these different profiles which causes fear for these clients. So what will be the concerns is initiators and strategists not achieving their goals. If they feel they're losing control and haven't got control over their financial planners, and if they feel we're wasting their time, not adding value to them. On the other side, the influencers, engagers, and community builders, if they concerned about losing their lifestyle and being embarrassed, because losing their lifestyle means that they're going to feel embarrassed. So in terms of if their plans is not going to support that lifestyle, and there you sit with a paradox, because they like to spend, but if they're going to spend too much now, they won't have enough in the future. So how to balance it? But that's important. You can actually use the weakness as a strength in the case of facilitators or engagers and community builders, relationship builders and facilitators, and then to a large extent adapters also. We hate too much volatility, and then don't come into conflict with us, because we hate that. We'll rather move away from that. And however, that's the important one, and that's something that I personally learned from the money EQ, is I would most probably rather spend money to avoid conflict. So that's the important struggle for me personally that I must be aware of. So instead of saying there's not enough money to do X, Y, I'll say, okay, let I plan tactical around this. We should be able to sort this out over the next 3-4 months, instead of saying let's wait 3 or 4 months and then do it. So avoiding conflict is then also a struggle, definitely, in how and then I talk for myself, how I manage money. And then don't take advantage of us, because due to the fact that we believe in people, we trust people, people can take us for a ride. But then if somebody have taken us for a ride, most probably we will clap hands with one hand and we will be out of here. So thoughts from your side, looking at this, what motivates relationship builders and facilitators, and then perhaps talking for yourself, if you've got somebody like that in your own house or in your own office, what comes up for you? Does it resonate, or yeah, so what comes up?
I'm happy to add something with a conversation with the client yesterday. That's a community builder that is so protective around her personal information, which was quite interesting. So that, being embarrassed and loss of lifestyle, she's going through a divorce and, discussing who she's willing to share it with and who she's not. This puts that into perspective, which was actually really interesting. Hendrik, would this be the natural behavior, and then you would have learned behavior to maybe, balance that out a little bit, or even sometimes counter it completely?
Yeah. And the thing between learned behavior and natural behavior is most probably, like in her case, where she's now under stress, that you would have most probably not seen that as much in the past. However, now when she's under stress and pressure, we will in most cases, except if we have really ingrained that learned behavior, we'll tend to go back to natural behavior. So that will be even stronger, so yeah. So then also important is, if we engage with the different types, if we then a strategist, initiator, and we need to engage with a relationship builder or facilitator or even an adapter, we need to soften up. So we're going to lose that client if we fast-paced, to the point, here's the solution, you must go with this, because that is the natural tendency for a strategist initiator. And even an influencer can be sometimes too much, due to the fact that things must happen fast. However, they have got the relationship, so they can normally balance that out. The let's get to the point, let's keep it bullets, with being strong on the relationships. Where the engagers, community builders, and influencers is, if you need to engage, especially with a strategist initiator or a reflective thinker or a stylish thinker, you need to tighten up. Moenie so lekker wees nie. Get a little bit to the agenda, and perhaps put the jokes, because just tell one joke and don't tell 10 jokes. Put the strategist in the control. Not that engagers and community builders wants to be in control, but due to the fact that they people persons and fast-paced, they're all over the place and telling stories and telling their own story because they are the important person in the room, where actually the strategy initiator wants to be in control, where the relationship builder and facilitator will, although the relationship orientated is, just go slower, please give me also a moment to think, to get stability. Don't change everything continuously. So where relationship builders, facilitators, adapter again needs to toughen up. So if we engage with strategy initiators, get to the point. If we then engaging with engagers and community builders, we can also be a little bit lighter, however, to the point and more assertive, also due to the fact that we hate conflict. Sometimes we do need to confront, and then for reflective thinkers and stylish thinkers, we'll get into next month, but they're very detailed orientated and to the point. So loosen up and just enjoy life a little bit. So yeah, perhaps a thought around communication styles with these different clusters, if we can call it like that, on a high level.
Hendrik, a different or other type of question, I think. Is it possible that somebody that you have worked with came over as more relationship builder type of person, and then over time they shift into one of the other areas, like in a stylish thinker or a reflective thinker, because of certain things that happened in their environment, that they sort of learned another style? Is that common, or is that a thing that not is commonly found in the industry?
No, so 100%, Annelie. So that's what Louis also referred to just now, is so that person most probably learned how to, the environment required of them to be more detailed. So they then over time learned the behavior to mask their natural behavior, in terms of learned behavior to things. So yeah, definitely it can happen. And then most probably you'll see that person, specifically between a reflective thinker and a relationship builder, for instance, then if you are then at the party after a few brandies there or wines, then they'll revert back to their natural behavior, and all of a sudden they'll be relaxed and more relationship orientated and just enjoying life again. So yeah.
Okay, ja. In Afrikaans sê ons hulle hak 'n bietjie uit.
Yeah, but in this case, they actually just found themselves again.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, thank you.
So if we then engage at a high level, and this is the cheat sheet for the relationship builder, is they brilliant advocates, they dependable, they loyal, they'll go to war for you. They're interesting, and then I'm talking from my daughter's perspective. If I just see, if you've got them behind your back, that's is most probably the only time you'll see they'll stand up, and they'll become very hard to support you in terms of something. They'll do not mind going into conflict if it's for something that they really feel strong about. Then what is the environment that we need to create for them? Is remember they need to fit in, to avoid conflict, create a relaxed environment for them, encourage their input and be an active listener. They also tend to sometimes not ask direct questions. They'll ask something, but they'll actually also not ask something. So you must really read between the lines, encourage their, specifically around encouraging their input, slow down the pace and soften the tone of communication, share your emotions along with information, because due to the fact that they're big on relationship. And then how do we challenge these clients so that they can become the best of them? Encourage them to share their ideas, due to the fact that they'll sometimes feel that they're not listened to, and work with them to realize their dreams, to get that best out of them, to maximize their potential, support, guide, and mentor them to build their financial decision making. What is their wants in terms of products? Steady product that have guarantees at least and are very predictable, so they don't like surprises. Products that they understand well, are comfortable with, and they can see the tangible results. Yeah, just a side note, my daughter, for instance, when she was in matric, she said in the open day, she said to the science teacher, don't give me the formulas, show me in the real world how that works, then I'll understand it, you know. And the next day in the class, the teacher tried to explain science by practical examples, which he didn't get well right, but that's fine. So in terms of what do they want from you as a mentor or a financial planner, steadiness and consistency and patience in addressing their concerns and education in investment products. So explaining for me so that they really can understand that I'm comfortable with what I'm engaging and committing to. Clearly communicate about the risk of products and expectations so there are no surprises. And their fears, committing to a product on the recommendations of a mentor only to find it does not work. So being a little bit skeptical in terms, although they're very trusting, committing to a product that has more risk than they knew about and anticipated. That also talks to their fears, finding out something afterwards. Decision-making style will be based on what they feel to be the safest investment, so not necessarily logic. They are likely only to commit to products that they know, understand, and feel comfortable with. So a big part of coaching and training also in that. And then what alienates them, being asked for a decision before they have had time to process their thoughts and feelings about an investment or product, or even going somewhere, or things, and mentors who are not patient in addressing their questions. So people that do not listen to what they are saying. And I must say, the expectation is sometimes that the mentor also must understand what they're actually asking, the underlying question they're actually asking. So yeah, so that is a relationship builder on a page. Marguerite, what will you add to that picture? Or what must we not assume of relationship builders?
Hendrik, in my own life, I think education is critically important. So the better the client understands a product or an investment strategy or whatever it is, the more likely, personally, that I would venture out of my comfort zone. So if I understand the rationale behind the decision, then I would be willing to, for instance, take on more risk or do something different than what my default would suggest. So I think working with them in terms of mentoring is very, very important. Also, that depending on the relationship context in which a person finds themselves, that could be a huge impact on their decision-making processes. I see it in my own life. If I feel we need to make a financial decision and my husband is not on the same page, or he says, I don't have capacity to talk or think about this now, then I would put that decision on hold, sometimes indefinitely, because avoiding the conflict and protecting the relationship is more important to me than making the actual decision. So I think that relational context and understanding the client's relational context is very important.
Yeah, I can just agree with you on that one, definitely, Marguerite. Thanks for sharing that. Any questions perhaps from somebody else that was working with a relationship builder, or just questions around in general? So, okay. Then just a little bit perhaps on the report itself. Yes, two relationship builders. If we look very different, on the one side, a risk behavior of 14, a risk behavior of 69 on the other side, relationship management 86, where on the other side 50, financial planning management 31, 58, wealth building motivation 7, wealth building motivation 38, and financial emotional intelligence a 14 and a 54. Just like high level perhaps for those of you that's new to it. Risk behavior gives us a good idea of, I just want to get the slide back for us there. I don't know why it jumped. I just want to get it back there. There we are. So risk behavior will also, in the 5-page report, this is the 1-page summary report, will in the 5-page report gives us a better view and deeper view of risk tolerance as well as risk appetite, where here gives us then a combined score, which just high level is what is the risk the client will take. Financial relationship management is 86 tells us this client will most probably delegate financial planning totally to the financial planner, will also drive the financial planner can drive the agenda, where the other person will most probably prefer a joint thing. Let's do this together. I don't want to give away control totally, but I value your input, and that if that's, for instance, lower than 30, it doesn't mean I don't want to work with a financial planner, but then in that case, you'll be cognitive of the client must feel totally in control of the process and the agenda. So you'll hand that over. Financial planning management is more around how do I spend and manage my money. Wealth building motivation talks a lot to how do I think about lifestyle and spending money in the moment rather than investing for the long term. So the lower that score is, the more coaching work there needs to be done to get the client excited about most probably small wins along the road towards the future. Things like rather thinking about financial independence. For relationship builders, it's also very important to spend money more on community, family, world peace, things that's important for the world, is to work on how do we build a financial plan to support those things that's important for you from a values perspective. And then financial emotional intelligence is how will you act if you're under stress and to make impulsive or not impulsive decisions. So that's what that tells us. So where does this big differences then come from? So high level, we just said this is how relationship builders is, but if we then go and look at the detailed report, it's driven then by the 5 what we call core financial life drivers or results in the relationships, and that is then supported by the 3 drivers in terms of financial planning, which is pioneering, risk, and creativity. That then works from a midpoint, and if you look at the reports, the midpoint is, or the strength is then calculated from, if it's to the right, it's calculated from 50 onwards, and then also from 50 downwards will then say, how strong do my client actually lean towards? So how much more is there of that drivers then in my client's personality? So if we go and look in this case, on the left-hand side, that client, and that's where the difference comes in, is high on cooperation and high on creativity. Where the client on the right-hand side is, if we go and look, is in terms of reserved and being patient. Nearly I actually think is exactly the same, is 39. That gives us, what does that gives us? 11, and on this side 11, exactly the same, both 11. But if we go and look at the sub drivers, made reserved the more important one here, and then the other one is anchored, which is lying on 10, which is also very, very close. So the report then takes the two highest drivers, as which will then determine how a client will engage in terms of life, as well as how the client will behave in terms of how they'll manage their finances, well as how they'll look at their finances in terms of investments. And that will also determine what is the environment that we then create for the client to best possible adapt their financial plan. For instance, if we then go and look, in this case, your key adoption of a plan, honor my need to reflect and think, which comes from the reserved, allow my time to process my responses, also coming, remember my need to avoid conflict, and then comes from the being patient and the reserved, where on the other side, and that's also contributing to, in terms of mental accounting and overconfidence, the two the two biases, where on the other side, encourage me to think out of the box. Creativity, by far, 17 points, the strongest one. Encourage me to brainstorm, also coming from there. Focus on my need for life balance, coming there, where we can then see. So that's then where if you've got the question, where does the information then come from, that gives you your 1-pager and gives you your 5-pager. If you then go into the detail, which is in the mentoring report, you can get the detail. But normally I don't go there, except in the mentoring report is part 3, which gives you all the coaching questions, has got a lot of value. But I think it's just good to understand where the primary drivers come from. So yeah, I think let's stand still for a moment on this. Any questions that comes up from you from a technical viewpoint, looking at the reports as such, and understanding how it comes together. Not necessarily it's like the light switch. We know Eskom provides the current for us, so you can believe in the report, but I think that's part of the community also, to understand a little bit. If you get a technical client, or you wonder about why does the two reports differ so much, it comes from these primary strengths, because so that just perhaps thoughts from my side. And yeah, what comes up from you, or then also what questions come up for you.
Hendrik, very new to me, in a sense of it's almost overload of information for me this morning, but I can relate to the information. In other words, I can think of examples of clients, of people, and I think the more I spend time with the report, I will be in a better position to better use it, if I can put it that way. I'm excited because it's really a tool that you can positively use in your practice. So yeah, but at the moment, a little bit here and there and all over until I think I must also, after today's session, actually sit with my own report and try to, because I've made some notes here, and try to reflect on my own report and understand, if this was a client report, where and how will I use it. That might give me more confidence to go into a session.
Yeah, so definitely, Anli, and we normally say do one for yourself, do one perhaps for your husband, and then for somebody in your office, and then a client which for a very long time. Do 3 or 4 or 5 of these. And I think initially, is to what Louis said earlier, is initially just use the I love the one pager report for a client. Use that, as, what do you think about this? What do you agree of it? What don't you agree? And keep the conversation just over that, just around that. And then over time, you can, as you build your own confidence, you start looking at the 5-pager report, because there's a lot of information that then actually tells you where the information on the one pager comes from. And and the more you work with it and see, okay, if we think about wealth building, I actually see the client battles to build long-term plans. Low in financial management, I can see it in terms of so this is actually a spender. So rather have a spender conversation and not a budgeting conversation, so over time you learn how to play with it, Annelie.
Okay, thank you.
TK, you were dead quiet. What do you say, my man? Because you also starting nicely to start playing with it. So yeah.
Yeah. So I think sometimes you just need to keep quiet and absorb the information. So that's what I was doing. But I think just to add on to, I think it's Honley who just spoke now.
Yeah.
If I hope I also said the name correctly.
That's
I think
correct.
Also, did I say correctly? Okay. Yeah. So I think just to add on to her comment is it can get a bit overwhelming, but what I'm realizing on my own journey as well is that the more you engage with the reports from different clients, the better and more confident you become. I say this because I sent one to a client yesterday. We are meeting over the weekend to go through the report and just to unpack. And immediately after the client received her report, she actually gave me a call and she was so excited, mainly because the report was a reflection, very close reflection to who she was. And she was like, this is one of the best tools because I now understand myself better and I understand some of my financial behaviors. So I think the more we do and use the report, the more confident we'll become as planners and coaches just to help our clients achieve their financial goals. So I thought that was worth sharing. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, TK. That's really so valuable. And that's my experience also is, yeah, I must say from December, and over and above the group sessions that I've done, I think I've done more than 100 now one-on-one sessions with these reports, and I didn't have one client that was averse against the thing. Everybody took out something from the conversation, and it's normally, I do not agree with this or that in the report. And then that's actually wonderful. I actually don't want a client that say I agree with everything in the report, because then it's a more difficult conversation. If the client say, but I was wondering about this, or I'm curious about this, or what do you mean by that? It's actually wonderful, because then you've already got the conversation started going. So fantastic. So yeah, I think I'm not going to try and start something, a new conversation, because we nearly at 9 o'clock. So from my side, thank you very, very much for today, and for everybody that joined in, and for those that some had to drop off the call. So for you also, thanks for your time, and thanks, and all of the best for the week and the month ahead. And then we most probably see each other again, if you can make it at the coaching call. So thanks, Marguerite, and all of the best that side, Annelie and
Thanks, Hendrik.
TK.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all. Yeah.
Thanks.
Enjoy your day.
Thanks, TK. All of the best.
You.
Do a lot of business.
That's the plan.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye, you all.